In episode 1, we see Geralt kills a creature in a swamp, but when he goes to the town bar, he's not wanted there. The townspeople call him a mutant and tell him that his kind doesn't belong there. He does meet a woman in the bar though, with whom he shares a drink before he gets summoned. He goes to see a man, a kind of magician named Strugabor, who asks him to kill a monster, a human named Wenfrey. Strugabor tells Geralt of the Black Sun, the first full eclipse in 1200 years that marked the return of the demon god Lilith, sent to destroy the human race. Her arrival was meant to be marked by 60 women wearing gold crowns. He studied the girls born around the Black Sun and found internal mutations in them. He tried to cure them, but the girls always died. He then delivered a princess, Wenfrey, under the Black Sun, and she also had this curse. He's been unable to stop her from robbing and killing people. She's resistant to magic as well because she's a human with a kind of mutation. She is the last of Lilith's women, and she's also hunting Strugabor, so he needs her dead. Geralt turns down the offer to kill Wenfrey. Then we get to the royal family of Sintra, and they're talking about a potential war with Nilfgaardian forces, but the queen feels assured that they have more knights and are prepared if it ever gets to that. One of her guards later tells her that Nilfgaard is coming, and the queen looks worried for her granddaughter Ciri. This imminent attack has something to do with her. Obviously, the queen miscalculated, and there will be bloodshed after all. We learn that the woman from the bar, who Geralt had met earlier, is Wenfrey, and she finds him in the forest. She says that Strugabor's men attacked and robbed her, and she did what she had to do to survive. She then wants Geralt to kill Strugabor. He advises her to just leave and live her life. It's her choice, but she's intent on getting her revenge. Wenfrey tells Geralt later that she will leave after all, and they kiss. The Princess Ciri gets taken somewhere in the castle to keep her safe while the fighting goes on. The queen is badly wounded on the battlefield, and she tells Ciri that she will rule the land one day. The forces are wanting to breach the castle gates, but for now they're kept out by magic. Eventually they do breach, and while this is happening, the queen tells Ciri in a farewell that good leaders always choose mercy. She tells her to find Geralt because he is her destiny. Mousesack and some guards help the princess flee the castle because Nilfgaard doesn't take prisoners. Anyone they come across will be tortured or killed. As Ciri escapes through the tunnels, everyone else in the palace takes their life and the queen falls to her death. Geralt goes to the market and is ambushed by a bunch of bad guys but takes them out quite easily. This is apparently some trap set by Wenfrey. She appears and the two of them fight as well. Geralt bests her, and as she's dying she tells Geralt that the girl in the woods is his destiny. Princess Ciri meanwhile gets captured by what looks like a Nilfgaard soldier, but she lets out a supernatural sounding scream that brings down buildings and she manages to run away. After Geralt has killed Wenfrey, the people of the town turn on him and they run him out of town. In episode 2, we meet Yennefer, who, while being attacked by some bullies, travels through a portal to some other place where she meets a man named Istred. But before long, she goes back to the farm, her home, and her father sells her for 4 marks to a witch who just so happens to come by with an offer to buy her. Obviously, the witch was drawn to the farm because Yennefer conjured up this portal. Princess Ciri, meanwhile, is hiding in the forest. She meets a boy named Dara who is mute at first, and he warns her about not eating poisonous berries. He offers her some food, and he turns out to be an elf. Geralt takes a new slaying job in another town. A devil that is stealing the locals' grains needs to be killed, so he goes to the mountains accompanied by a bard named Jaskier. While trying to slay the devil, both Geralt and Jaskier get captured by the elves who are working with the devil. You see, before humans, elves lived on the lands, but humans tried to wipe them out, and there is, as a result, a long-standing feud between the humans and the elves want to reclaim what's theirs. Eventually, they let Geralt and Jaskier go. Geralt tries to convince the elves to live peacefully with the humans for their own survival, but the elves aren't quite convinced. Tesea is the name of the woman who took Yennefer, by the way, bought her. She has a kind of school to help gifted women channel and control their magic. Yennefer goes down to the caves and she meets Istred again, and he helps her overcome her struggles with using magic. Yennefer is struggling at first, but she is actually really powerful. She also reveals to Istred that her real father was half elf. Istred's interest in Yennefer is not all it seems. He appears to have been set up by a man, and Istred tells the man who asks about Yennefer that she is part elf. In episode 3, we see another witcher go to a town to slay a creature that has been terrorizing the townspeople. A sex worker tells Geralt about a witcher who stole money from people of Temeria and ran with the money without slaying the beast. This is that witcher. so Geralt offers to kill the creature for them. Triss, a witch, asks Geralt to help her save the beast instead. She tells him about the rumors that the beast came from the crypt where the king's sister was buried. Turns out Ada, the king's sister, was pregnant at the time of her death, and the cursed child somehow still birthed itself. Slithered out, all deformed, Geralt says. It's a creature called a striga, and she's a princess, obviously. And Geralt figures out that she's a striga because she only eats certain organs from her victims. Geralt asks the king who the striga's father is, and it turns out that the siblings had had an affair, and Ada refused to terminate her pregnancy by her brother, the king. Then we get to the chapter. A group of important magical politician types, mages they're called, votes on sending Yennefer to Nilfgaard to work for King Fergus. She can't go to where she wanted initially because of her elf blood. Yennefer knows now that the only other person she told was Istred, so she knows that he betrayed her. Back to Geralt's story, it turns out that one of the king's right-hand men was in love with Ada, and he was the one who brought on the curse as a punishment to the king. And he refuses to tell Geralt how to lift the curse at first. Eventually he does explain how he carried out the curse with an elven chant. The Sintra comes out and kills him, and Geralt fights it. The next day we see that she's turned into a girl again, but she's still feral. She bites Geralt, but Triss nurses him back to health. Yennefer, meanwhile, goes to some kind of artist who will do a procedure on her to make her beautiful and heal her crooked spine. The price of being reborn, she's told, is that she will be infertile. Yennefer comes to the ball, all transformed, and everybody is stunned by her power and her beauty, and she dances with the king. Ciri, in the forest, meanwhile, hears whispers and she walks towards them as Dara tries to stop her. In episode 4, Ciri sees that light in the forest and suddenly a tribe of women appears. They make her and Dara drink water from a tree to know their intentions. Jaskier and Geralt go to a party at a castle in Sintra and Mousak is there. It's the betrothal of the Queen Lioness's daughter, Pavetta. She needs to marry to ensure that Sintra remains stable, or some political alliance type of marriage. I'll admit I was so confused here at first because the queen is still alive somehow, and then I remembered that this is when the timeline split. The queen asks why there are so few witches left, and Geralt tells her that it became impossible to create any more of them since the sacking of Caer Morhen. We're not told what that is though. A knight then comes in to ask for the princess's hand in marriage. Somehow his claim to her hand is rightfully his by something called the Law of Surprise, because he once saved the king's life. The knight has been cursed, by the way, so he has the face of a hedgehog. Turns out the princess knows him though, and they are already in love. The queen wants to refuse payment of the debt. She doesn't want her daughter to marry this creature and almost nearly kills him, but as she tries to, Pavetta screams, which knocks everyone over. The Princess Pavetta says that she wants to marry the knight, and eventually the queen decides that the Law of Surprise will be honoured, and the curse gets lifted. The knight has his normal human face again. Mousak tries to convince Geralt to stay because he's bound to Pavetta's unborn child because of another Law of Surprise between the knight, who wanted to pay Geralt back, and Geralt. But Geralt leaves. Yennefer, meanwhile, is a king's mage. She has her seat at court, and we hear that it's been 3 decades. She's traveling with a queen when they're suddenly attacked. Yennefer says it's because the woman has run out of chances to give the king a male heir. Yennefer keeps making portals for them to escape, but eventually the assassin kills both the woman and her baby. Then it looks like we go to the original timeline where a group of witches find Queen Calanthe dead. Remember, she jumped out of the window to her death. Sintra is burning, so it looks like this is the aftermath of the Nilfgaard attack. The group sense that Ciri, who they're looking for, is in Brooklyn Forest, and Mousak is being held prisoner in this timeline. In episode 5, a Doppler who wears other people's skins and becomes them, he collects their body parts in jars for this purpose, takes over Mousak's face and has access to all of his memories. The real Mousak is then killed. The Doppler Mousak is then tasked with bringing Ciri back alive. Yennefer is obviously not a mage in the royal household anymore. She performs spells to help the locals for a price. Ciri, meanwhile, is in the forest, and the women tribe find and kill Nilfgaardian spies who are sniffing about for her. They give her a choice to stay or continue on her search. It's also been about a decade, and Geralt and the bard Jaskier are still friends, kind of reluctantly on Geralt's part. Jaskier ends up setting free a djinn and he becomes injured, and an elf helps them with the pain but tells Geralt that they'll need the help of a mage. They eventually go to the mayor's house to find the mage that lives there. It's Yennefer. She manages to save Jaskier. She somehow enchants Geralt, and he goes on a rampage and he ends up in jail with the elf. She got him to enact revenge on her behalf while he was compelled by her. She then summons the djinn to become a vessel. Remember, Yennefer is looking for a cure. She wants to restore her fertility. Eventually, Doppler Mousak comes to the forest and he tells the woman that Ciri's grandmother's dying wish was for her to find Geralt of Rivia. He was promised to her through the Law of Surprise. So you remember that scene with Pavetta and her hedgehog man in the castle? Yes, this is the connection where Geralt claimed the Law of Surprise, and it just so happened that Pavetta was pregnant at the time. Ciri bids farewell to the woman in the forest and goes with the Doppler Mousak. Dara goes with them. In episode 6, while out on a slaying job, we're introduced to Bork 3 Jackdaws and his two companions, Taya and Vea. He tells Geralt about a dragon terrorizing a village and he wants Geralt to join his team. He wants one final adventure before he's too old. Yennefer is also part of this hunting party and Geralt eventually agrees to go along. By the way, Yennefer is there because she's heard that the dragon has certain properties that can help her with the fertility that she has lost. Ciri, Dara, and Doppler Mousak are traveling through the woods, and Dara is really suspicious of him and tries to warn Ciri. Eventually, Ciri figures out that it's not Mousak. Borch, meanwhile, the old man, seems to fall to his death on the journey to slay the dragon. Geralt seems to be falling in love with Yen, even though earlier it was mentioned that witches don't feel human emotions. He does say later that people will say anything to justify hating witches though, so I guess that's just a myth. He tells her the moment he dreads most is when her scent fades when she leaves. He tells Yen that she's important to him. In the end, it turns out that Borch sought out the Witcher to save the dragon who was guarding its egg. He himself, Borch, is also the very rare golden dragon. Borch tells Geralt that he will lose Yen, something he was afraid of, and he does after they have a fight. Yen, meanwhile, will never get her womb back. In episode 7, in one of the timelines, Mousak tells Geralt about his child of the Law of Surprise, Ciri, who is being raised by her grandmother Calanthe. Geralt has a feeling that she isn't safe, so this is obviously prior to the Nilfgaard forces attacking Sintra. Turns out the Queen doesn't want to honor the Law of Surprise again. Geralt wants the Queen to give guardianship of Ciri to him to keep her safe because of the threat of Nilfgaard forces, and he says he'll bring her back unharmed. And the Queen agrees, but I don't know if I trust her. She tries to give Geralt a decoy though, and he catches on. Yen ends up in Nazaire. Nilfgaard has also taken this place. Istred is there looking for runes. She suggests running away together with him. Another Maeve then comes to tell her that it's not safe for them there. They have to go to Aretuza. These mages then tell Yennefer of an imminent attack on Sintra by Nilfgaard, and they want to stop it. Just then, during their council meeting, news comes that Nilfgaard has taken Sintra. Fringilla comes back to tell the rest of the mages that they're not looking to fight them. She tries to convince the chapter that they have transformed the lands for the better. They also use dark magic though. They're bad news, but they think that they're saving the continent. The mages vote to leave Sintra to defend itself, but Tissaia tells Yen that a few of them are going to fight to protect their way of life. Meanwhile, in Sintra at the palace, we get that scene with the Queen wounded from battle, and she sends Ciri to find Geralt. In the final episode, we see Sintra is burning. Ciri wakes up the next morning to see that the men who tried to attack her the night before are all draped across the trees and dead. Remember, she unleashed her power on them as they tried to attack her. A group of mages, including Yen, Triss, and Tissaia, are sailing towards Sodden. This is the only thing standing between Nilfgaard and the north. They get to work with the villagers of Sodden and the people who have moved there after having lost everything to Nilfgaard forces, and they start to build a makeshift civilian army. They don't have much though, since Nilfgaard has blocked a lot of the roads. Ciri, meanwhile, gets taken in by a family temporarily, a woman who has always wanted a daughter. Nilfgaard launches their attack on Sodden, spearheaded by Fringilla. As the Nilfgaard forces approach, Yen, who is in the tower, guides the other mages in their defense strategy. Geralt, meanwhile, has been bitten by some kind of zombie creature and he's delirious. We get some scenes of when he was a child, as he's hallucinating. Eventually he is healed by a sorceress. On the battlefield, Tissaia tries to extend an olive branch to Frigilla, but Frigilla puts some kind of spell on her, taking her out for a time. Tissaia later tells Yen that her legacy is to save the continent. She should let her chaos explode, and Yen does. In the end, Geralt and Ciri find each other in the forest, but we don't know what has become of Yen. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching.